The large office building of Bradshaw Financial stood tall among the city skyline, its glass windows reflecting the morning sun. Inside, on the 24th floor, Mei Lin sat at her desk, her fingers moving quickly across her keyboard. The clock on her computer showed 7:30 a.m., a full hour before most of her coworkers would arrive. Mei liked these quiet mornings. They reminded her of practice rooms from long ago, where she once sat alone with another kind of keyboard. Those memories felt like they belonged to someone else now. Another early start, I see. Mei looked up to find Mr. Reynolds, one of the senior partners, dropping a stack of folders on her desk. He didn't wait for her response before continuing. These need to be organized and summarized by noon. And don't forget the Henderson presentation needs updating with the new numbers. Of course, Mr. Reynolds, I'll have everything ready, Mei said with a polite smile. He was already walking away, his attention on his phone. Mei doubted he had even heard her. After 7 years at Bradshaw Financial, she had grown used to this. She was like the office furniture, necessary but rarely noticed. At 34, Mei had mastered the art of blending in. Her dark hair was always pulled back in a simple bun. Her clothes were neat, but unremarkable. Today, a navy blue skirt and white blouse that matched dozens of others in the building. Nothing about her invited attention, and that was exactly how she had arranged things. The office gradually filled with the Monday morning sounds, complaints about traffic, weekend stories, the hiss of the expensive coffee machine that someone had brought in last year. Mei finished her first assignment and moved on to the presentation, all while listening to snippets of conversation around her. Did you see what Lisa wore to the client dinner? Totally inappropriate. Bet she gets that promotion anyway. She's always sucking up to the bosses. Hey, anyone know if the new reports are ready? I need them for my meeting. No one directed these questions to Mei, even though she had prepared those reports last Friday and sent emails to everyone who needed them. She could have spoken up, but experience had taught her that inserting herself into these conversations only led to awkward silences. At the coffee station, Mei waited her turn behind 2 of the junior financial analysts. They were discussing their weekend adventures at some exclusive club. Oh, excuse me, one of them said with exaggerated surprise when he finally noticed her. Didn't see you there, his friend snickered. Like a ninja always appearing out of nowhere. Mei gave a small smile and reached for a paper cup. No problem. You're Mei, right? You work for Reynolds? The first one asked, though they'd been introduced at least 5 times over the past year. Yes. And for Ms. Winters and Mr. Bradshaw when they need assistance, she replied. Right. He nodded, already losing interest. Well, better get back to the real work. Those accounts won't analyze themselves. As they walked away laughing, Mei heard one of them say, Must be boring just filing and answering phones all day. She poured her coffee and added a single packet of sugar, stirring it slowly. 7 years ago, when she'd first arrived in this country, she had been grateful to find this job. The steady paycheck had helped her family back home and given her stability in a new place. But sometimes, in quiet moments like this, she couldn't help but remember who she had once been. Before Bradshaw Financial, before immigration paperwork and practical decisions, there had been music. Her fingers had once danced across 88 keys instead of a computer keyboard, creating sounds that made people stop and really see her. Mei, there you are! The sharp voice of Diane from HR cut through her thoughts. I need the new employee orientation packets. Please tell me they're ready. Yes, I finished them on Friday. They're in your inbox and I also left printed copies on your desk, Mei replied. Diane looked momentarily surprised. Oh, well, good then. No thank you, of course. Mei returned to her desk where a new stack of papers awaited her attention. The morning crawled into afternoon, one task blending into another. At 1 o'clock, the office buzzed with a new energy. The planning committee for the annual charity gala was meeting in the large conference room. Mei wasn't part of the committee. She never was invited to join such things, but she had been asked to take notes and order lunch for everyone. She slipped into the conference room and took a seat in the corner. Notepad ready. Around the long table sat the company's rising stars and established leaders. They barely glanced her way as they discussed venues, catering options, and entertainment. We need something impressive this year, said Vivian Winters, the company's marketing director. Her sleek blonde hair framed a face that regularly appeared in business magazines. The Richardson group outdid themselves last quarter. We can't look second rate. There were murmurs of agreement around the table. What about the entertainment? Asked Patrick, head of client relations. Last year's string quartet was nice, but a bit forgettable. I've been talking to that jazz ensemble that played at the mayor's fundraiser, someone suggested. Too casual. Vivian dismissed with a wave. This is our chance to show culture and sophistication. My cousin knows someone who works with the symphony, offered another voice. Maybe a small classical arrangement? Vivian brightened. Yes, a pianist perhaps. Something elegant but impressive. As the discussion continued, May's pen moved across her notepad, capturing decisions and assignments, but her mind drifted to another time, another place. The National Conservatory of Music, with its high ceilings and practice rooms that stayed open until midnight. The weight of expectation from her teachers who had seen something special in the quiet girl from the provinces. The competitions she had won, the scholarships that had seemed like the beginning of something extraordinary, until life had intervened. Her father's illness, the family business failing, the choice that wasn't really a choice at all, family first always. The practical path that led her here to this corner seat, invisible to the people making decisions. Earth to office girl, Patrick's voice cut through her memories. Are you getting all this down? May blinked, realizing the room had gone quiet and everyone was looking at her. Yes, sorry. You were discussing the pianist options and budget constraints. And the timeline, Vivian added with a frown. We need to book someone exceptional within the next 2 weeks. Make sure that's highlighted in the notes. Of course, May nodded, writing quickly. Anything else? Just make sure lunch arrives on time, Patrick said. We're all starving. As if on cue, there was a knock at the door, and the delivery person arrived with bags of food from the expensive sandwich place down the street. May jumped up to help distribute the orders, knowing exactly who had requested what without needing to check. At least someone around here is efficient, remarked one of the executives, without looking directly at her. It was meant as a compliment, May supposed, though it felt more like being praised for being a well-functioning appliance. During lunch, the committee continued their discussion while May ate her sandwich quietly in the corner. They debated budgets and guest lists, sponsorship opportunities and table arrangements. May recorded it all, occasionally refilling water glasses or retrieving forgotten documents. Who is handling the invitations this year? Asked Patrick between bites of his gourmet sandwich. We should use an outside service, Vivian suggested. Last year's looked so ordinary. That's an unnecessary expense, countered the finance director. We have staff who can handle it. All eyes turned to May. You did the invitations last year, didn't you? Vivian asked, though it wasn't really a question. The office girl can do them again. May, corrected the finance director mildly. Her name is May. Right, May, Vivian smiled thinly. You'll handle the invitations again, won't you? You're so good with those little details. May nodded, forcing a polite smile. I'd be happy to. See? Problem solved. Vivian turned back to the others. Now about the centerpieces. After the meeting, May returned to her desk with pages of notes and a growing list of tasks related to the gala. She opened her computer and began organizing everything into actionable items with deadlines. As the afternoon sun cast long shadows through the office windows, most employees began packing up to leave. May stayed, as she often did, to finish the day's work without the distractions of questions and conversations that excluded her. In the quiet of the nearly empty office, she allowed herself a small moment of freedom. Her fingers paused over her keyboard, then curved slightly as if positioned over piano keys. She closed her eyes, and for just a few seconds, she was back in the concert hall of her university, the weight of expectation and possibility hanging in the air before her fingers brought Chopin to life. Still here? May's eyes snapped open. The night security guard, an older man named Ray, stood by her desk with a friendly smile. Unlike most people in the building, Ray always noticed her. Just finishing up, May said, quickly saving her work. You work too hard, Ray said. Not for the first time. Everyone else is long gone. I like the quiet, she replied, gathering her things. Ray nodded. You know, my daughter plays piano at that little restaurant on 5th Street. They have an open mic night on Thursdays. You should come sometime. May looked at him in surprise. She had never mentioned music to anyone at work. Ray smiled at her confusion. You tap your fingers sometimes when you think no one's watching. Like you're playing something only you can hear. Embarrassment washed over her. Oh, It's just a habit. A pianist's habit, Ray said knowingly. My daughter does the same thing. May shouldered her bag, unsure how to respond. I used to play. A long time ago. Music's not something you used to do, Ray said as they walked toward the elevator. It's something you are. The elevator doors closed on his kind face, and May leaned back against the wall, suddenly exhausted. 7 years of being just the office worker had become a comfortable hiding place. No expectations meant no disappointments. No attention meant no explanations about the past she had left behind. Tomorrow would be the same as today. She would arrive early, work efficiently, and remain largely unnoticed. It was safer that way. Easier. But as she walked through the quiet evening streets toward her small apartment, Ray's words echoed in her mind. For the first time in years, May allowed herself to wonder if the person she used to be was still there, buried beneath carefully constructed invisibility, waiting for the courage to play the first note. The following 2 weeks rushed by in a flurry of gala preparations. May found herself staying late every evening, addressing invitations in her neat handwriting, coordinating with vendors, and creating spreadsheets to track every detail. The planning committee continued to meet daily, their demands growing with each session. The gold envelopes looked cheap, Vivian said during Thursday's meeting, pushing aside the sample May had prepared. Can't we get something more elegant? Maybe cream with gold lettering? The invitations need to go out tomorrow to give guests enough notice, May reminded her gently. And we've already purchased all the materials based on the committee's previous approval. Vivian sighed dramatically. Fine, just make sure they look perfect. First impressions matter. May nodded and made a note, already calculating how many hours of sleep she would need to sacrifice to redo the 30 invitations she'd already finished. As the meeting ended, Patrick lingered behind, scrolling through his phone with a worried expression. May gathered her notes, pretending not to notice. She'd learned long ago that appearing too interested in executives' problems only made them uncomfortable. Damn it, Patrick muttered, running a hand through his hair. May continued organizing her papers. May, he said suddenly, as if just remembering she was there. You're good at solving problems, right? That's what you do all day? She looked up, unsure if she should be flattered or offended. I try to be helpful, yes. We have a situation with the entertainment for the gala, he said, his voice tight with stress. The pianist we booked just canceled. Some hand injury or something, less than 2 weeks before the event. I see, May said carefully. Would you like me to contact some alternatives? I believe there was a list of backup performers. Already tried. Everyone decent is booked solid. Patrick paced the conference room. This is a disaster. We promised the board members a sophisticated evening. Without proper entertainment, it'll look like we threw this together last minute. May hesitated, her heart suddenly beating faster. Ray's words from a few days ago echoed in her mind. Music's not something you used to do. It's something you are. I might, she began, then stopped, uncertain. What? Patrick turned to her impatiently. If you have an idea, just say it. May took a deep breath. I play piano. Or I used to, at least. I studied at the National Conservatory before I moved here. Patrick stared at her as if she'd just announced she could fly. You play? Like professionally? I was trained professionally, she clarified. I haven't performed in years, but hold on. Patrick interrupted, already pulling out his phone again. Vivian needs to hear this. Before May could say anything more, Patrick was texting Vivian, asking her to return to the conference room. May felt her palms grow damp. What had she done? After 7 years of careful invisibility, why had she chosen now to speak up? Vivian arrived minutes later, irritation clear on her face. This better be important, Patrick. I have a call with, our office assistant says she can play piano, Patrick blurted out. Like, conservatory level or something. Vivian turned to May, her perfectly shaped eyebrows raised in disbelief. You, a pianist? May nodded, fighting the urge to shrink under Vivian's skeptical gaze. Yes, I studied for many years. And you think you could perform at our gala? Vivian's tone made it clear how unlikely she found this possibility. I would need to practice, May admitted. But yes, I could play appropriate music for the evening. Vivian and Patrick exchanged looks, the kind of silent communication that executives master, full of doubt and calculation. Look, Vivian said finally, her voice softening into the tone people use when letting someone down gently. We appreciate the offer, but this gala is incredibly important for the company. The CEO will be there, along with our biggest clients. We need someone with current experience, someone who performs regularly. Of course, May said quickly, embarrassment flooding her cheeks. I understand. It was just a suggestion. And we appreciate it, Patrick added kindly. Maybe for a smaller office event sometime. May nodded and excused herself, grateful to escape the conference room. Back at her desk, she buried herself in work, trying to forget the moment of madness that had made her speak up. What had she been thinking? Of course they wouldn't trust her with something so important. She was just the office worker, reliable for filing and coffee orders, not for showcasing talent. Later that afternoon, May noticed the planning committee gathered again. Their voices raised in frustrated discussion. She kept her head down, focusing on the invitations she was redoing with extra care. It's impossible to find someone good with such short notice, she heard Patrick say as the group passed her. Desk, what about lowering our standards? Someone else suggested. Maybe a student from the local university. And risk them freezing under pressure? Vivian scoffed. No way. Their voices faded as they rounded the corner, but their problem lingered in May's mind. She opened her bottom desk drawer and pulled out a small photograph she kept hidden beneath office supplies. In it, a younger version of herself stood on a stage, bowing before an audience, flowers in her arms. The National Youth Piano Competition where she'd placed second. Just before everything changed. That evening, May didn't go straight home. Instead, she found herself walking into a music store she'd passed hundreds of times but never entered. The bell jingled as she opened the door, and the familiar smell of wood and polish wrapped around her like an old friend. Can I help you? Asked the older woman behind the counter. Do you have practice rooms? May asked, her voice barely audible. The woman smiled. $20 an hour. Includes a Yamaha upright. $30 for the room with the baby grand. May paid for an hour with the upright, following the woman to a small room in the back. When the door closed behind her, May stood frozen before the piano, suddenly afraid. What if she couldn't remember anything? What if all her training had disappeared in the years of disuse? Slowly, she sat on the bench and positioned her hands above the keys. Then, starting simply, she played a C major scale. Her fingers were stiff at first, uncertain. But by the time she reached the top octave, something was awakening. She played another scale, then another, feeling the familiar stretch and movement returning to her hands. An hour wasn't enough. She paid for another, then another after that. Basic exercises gave way to simple pieces she had memorized years ago. Mistakes happened, many at first, but less frequently as the evening wore on. When the store owner finally knocked on the door at closing time, May emerged with flushed cheeks and bright eyes. Been a while? The owner asked kindly. May nodded. 7 years. Sounded pretty good for 7 years of dust. You coming back tomorrow? Yes, May said, surprising herself with her certainty. I think I am. For the next 5 days, May developed a new routine. Work during the day, where she said nothing more about her musical abilities, and practice every evening until the store closed. She pulled out pieces from memory. Chopin nocturnes, Mozart sonatas, Bach preludes. Some returned easily, like old friends. Others required patient relearning, her fingers stumbling over passages that had once been fluid. At work, the gala crisis deepened. May overheard snippets of panicked conversations. The CEO is asking about the entertainment. Maybe we could just hire a DJ at a formal charity gala. Are you crazy? On the 6th day, a Wednesday, just 9 days before the event, Vivian approached May's desk with an expression of forced pleasantness. May, she said, perching on the edge of the desk. About your offer to play at the gala. May looked up, surprised. The committee has been discussing options, and we're wondering if you might still be willing to audition? Vivian's voice lilted upward on the last word, as if she couldn't quite believe what she was asking. Audition? May repeated. Yes, just so we can get a sense of your level. Patrick mentioned you studied at a conservatory, which sounds impressive, but we need to be sure. Vivian drummed her perfectly manicured nails on the desk. We're quite desperate, to be honest. If you're truly decent, we might consider it. 7 years ago, May would have been offended by the condescension. Now she simply nodded. When would you like me to play? Tomorrow morning? The conference room has that upright piano no one ever uses. Would 8 a.m. work? Before the day gets busy? Yes, that would be fine, May agreed. Vivian stood, relief evident in her posture. Wonderful. Play something appropriate for a sophisticated business event. Nothing too dramatic or foreign, you know. Our clients are traditional types. After Vivian left, May sat perfectly still, her mind racing through her repertoire. Nothing too dramatic or foreign. She almost laughed. What did that even mean? No Rachmaninov, no Liszt? Nothing that might remind the executives that she came from somewhere else? That she had a life and identity before becoming their invisible assistant? That evening, May practiced with new intensity. She had one chance to prove herself, to briefly step out of the box they'd placed her in. She selected 3 pieces: a Mozart sonata for its elegant clarity, a gentle Debussy for atmosphere, and a Chopin nocturne that had always been her favorite, regardless of whether it fit Vivian's vague criteria. Sleep eluded her that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she imagined the committee's judgmental faces, their surprise if she played well, their satisfied nods if she failed. By morning, her nerves were stretched thin, but a strange determination had settled in her chest. She arrived at the office at 7:30, her usual time. The old upright piano in the conference room was wildly out of tune, but she didn't care. She opened the lid and ran her fingers over the keys without pressing them, centering herself the way her first teacher had taught her. Breathe from your center. Let your shoulders relax. The music is already inside you. Your hands are just the messengers. At 8 a.m. sharp, the conference room door opened. May expected just Vivian and Patrick, but instead, the entire planning committee filed in, 10 people in total, including Mr. Reynolds and even Mr. Bradshaw himself, the company founder. They took seats around the conference table, some looking curious, others clearly skeptical. "Good morning, May," Mr. Bradshaw said kindly. Unlike the others, he always remembered her name. "Vivian tells me you might save our gala." "I'll try my best, sir," May replied, her mouth dry. "Whenever you're ready," Vivian prompted, checking her watch. "We've all got busy schedules today." May turned to the piano, placing her hands on the keys. The room fell silent. This was it. The moment when they would either continue seeing her as just an office worker or glimpse who she had once been. She chose the Chopin first, not the Mozart as she'd planned. If they were going to judge her, let it be on the piece she loved most. She took a deep breath and began to play. The first notes of Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major filled the conference room. May's fingers moved across the keys with a gentleness that belied her nervousness. The familiar melody flowed from her hands, tentative at first, then with growing confidence. She had played this piece hundreds of times before, for teachers, for competitions, for her family on their old upright piano back home. But she had never played it quite like this, never with 7 years of unspoken words behind each note. As she reached the middle section, where the melody grows more complex and emotional, May forgot about the executives watching her. She forgot about their judgment, their surprise, their busy schedules. She even forgot about the out-of-tune piano with its slightly sticky D key. There was only the music speaking what she could not say aloud. "I am more than you see. I've always been more." When the final notes faded, May kept her eyes on the keys, not ready to face the room. The silence that followed seemed to stretch forever. Then a single person began to clap. May looked up to see Mr. Bradshaw himself, the 70-year-old founder of the company, standing with an expression of genuine wonder on his face. "My God," he said softly, still clapping. "Where on earth did you learn to play like that?" Others joined in the applause, hesitantly at first, then with enthusiasm, all except Vivian, who sat with her arms crossed, a complicated expression on her face. "That was..." Patrick struggled to find the right words. "That was actually really good." "Really good?" Mr. Bradshaw shook his head. "That was exceptional." "May, why didn't you tell us you were a concert-level pianist?" May felt her cheeks grow warm. "I studied for many years, but I haven't played regularly since moving here." "Well, you could have fooled me," Mr. Reynolds said, looking at May as if seeing her for the first time. "I thought we had a professional in here." Mr. Bradshaw turned to Vivian. "I think we've found our entertainment, wouldn't you say?" Vivian's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "It's definitely an option to consider, though I'm concerned about May's other responsibilities. The gala preparations require a lot of administrative work. We can redistribute those tasks." Mr. Bradshaw waved his hand dismissively. "This is far more valuable. May, would you play something else for us?" May nodded, surprised by the request, but pleased to continue. She chose the Debussy piece next, Clair de Lune, its dreamy, impressionistic quality filling the room with a different kind of beauty. As she played, she noticed several committee members taking out their phones. At first, she thought they were checking emails, already bored with her performance. Then she realized they were recording her. When she finished the second piece, the applause was immediate. "That settles it," Mr. Bradshaw declared. "May will play at the gala. We'll advertise that we have an in-house talent showcase." "If you're sure," Vivian said, her voice tight. "It's quite a departure from having a known performer." "I'm absolutely sure," Mr. Bradshaw replied firmly. "May, can you prepare a full program? 2 hours with appropriate breaks?" May's heart raced. 2 hours was a substantial program, the length of a serious recital. "Yes, I can do that. I'll need time to practice, though." Of course, Mr. Bradshaw nodded eagerly. "Take whatever time you need. This is now your primary responsibility until the gala. Vivian, make sure May has access to a proper piano for rehearsal." Vivian's smile was fixed in place. "I'll see what I can arrange." As the committee filed out, Mr. Bradshaw lingered behind. He was a tall man with silver hair and kind eyes that had seen the company through decades of growth. "Why administrative work, May?" he asked quietly. "With your talent, you could be performing professionally." May looked down at her hands. "Life doesn't always follow the path we imagine, sir." "No, it certainly doesn't," he agreed. "But sometimes it circles back when we least expect it." After he left, May remained at the piano, her fingers tracing the keys without pressing them. A strange feeling bubbled up inside her, something between terror and exhilaration. After years of careful invisibility, she would be the center of attention at the company's biggest event of the year. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Word spread quickly through the office. Colleagues who had barely acknowledged May's existence suddenly found reasons to pass by her desk. "I had no idea you played piano. Where did you study? Have you performed before?" Each question was asked with a new tone of respect, a hint of curiosity about the woman they'd overlooked for years. May answered politely but briefly, uncomfortable with the sudden attention. By afternoon, Vivian appeared at her desk with a tight smile. "We've arranged for you to use the grand piano at the Westbrook Hotel for practice. It's the same venue as the gala, so you can get comfortable with the acoustics." "Thank you," May said, genuinely grateful despite Vivian's obvious reluctance. "That's very helpful. Mr. Bradshaw has also authorized a clothing budget for your performance attire," Vivian continued, placing a company credit card on May's desk. "Nothing too flashy, of course. Elegant and appropriate." "Of course," May agreed. Vivian lingered, tapping her manicured nails on the desk. "Just so we're clear, this is a one-time situation. The company needed a solution, and you happen to have an unusual skill set. After the gala, things will return to normal." The message was clear. Don't get ideas above your station. You're still just an office worker. "I understand completely," May said, meeting Vivian's eyes directly. "This is just to help the company." Something flickered across Vivian's face, perhaps surprise at May's directness, or recognition that the quiet assistant she'd overlooked for years had depth she hadn't imagined. "Good," Vivian said finally. "The car will pick you up at 3 p.m. for your first practice session." When Vivian left, May let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It was Patrick. "Everyone's talking about your audition. Never seen the old man so impressed. Don't tell Vivian, but I recorded the whole thing and sent it to the events team. They're thrilled." May smiled, tucking her phone away. For the first time in years, she felt a spark of her old self returning. The girl who had once lived for music, who had believed in possibilities. At 3 p.m. sharp, a sleek black car waited outside the office building. The driver opened the door for May with a formal ma'am that made her blush. She had never been ma'am before, always just May, or the office girl, or sometimes not addressed at all. The Westbrook was the most prestigious hotel in the city, a historic building with soaring ceilings and marble floors. As May followed the events coordinator through the grand lobby, she felt painfully aware of her simple work clothes and practical shoes. Hotel guests in designer outfits glanced at her curiously as she passed. "Here we are," the coordinator said, pushing open the doors to the ballroom. "You'll have the space to yourself for 3 hours each day until the event. The piano was just tuned yesterday. May stepped into the enormous room and caught her breath. Crystal chandeliers hung from a ceiling painted with clouds and cherubs. Tables for 200 guests would fill the space on the night of the gala, but now it was empty, except for a magnificent grand piano on a small stage at the far end. "Will this work for you?" the coordinator asked, already checking her phone for her next appointment. "Yes," May whispered. "It's perfect." When the coordinator left, May stood alone in the vast room. Her footsteps echoed as she approached the piano, a Steinway concert grand that probably cost more than she would earn in 10 years. She ran her fingers lightly over its polished surface before sitting on the bench. The keys were cool and responsive beneath her fingers as she began to play scales to warm up. The sound was rich and full, nothing like the worn upright in the conference room. Each note rang clear in the perfect acoustics of the ballroom. May played for hours, losing track of time as she worked through potential pieces for the gala program. Classical selections that would please Mr. Bradshaw. Jazz standards for variety. Even a few contemporary pieces rearranged for solo piano. Her fingers remembered more than she expected, muscle memory returning after years of dormancy. When she finally stopped, her hands aching pleasantly, she realized someone was watching her. A man in a hotel uniform stood at the back of the room. "Sorry," he said, stepping forward. "I didn't want to interrupt. I'm Joe, the night manager. They told me someone would be practicing, but they didn't say." He trailed off, seemingly at a loss for words. "Didn't say what?" May asked. "That you'd be so good," he finished simply. "You a professional?" May hesitated. Was she? Had she ever been? "I'm an administrative assistant at Bradshaw Financial," she said finally. "I'm playing for their charity gala." Joe raised his eyebrows. "Seriously? They're lucky to have you. That was beautiful." "Thank you," May said, gathering her things. She wasn't used to compliments. "You've got the room until 6, Joe said, checking his watch. "It's only 5:30. I should get home. I need to plan the full program tonight." Joe nodded. "I'll be around tomorrow if you need anything. Just ask for me at the front desk." The next 8 days fell into a new rhythm. Mornings at the office, where May handled the most essential administrative tasks while fielding curious questions from colleagues. Afternoons at the hotel, practicing until her fingers ached. Evenings at home, planning the program and researching the musical preferences of Bradshaw's biggest clients. Word about the office pianist spread beyond Bradshaw Financial. Twice during her practice sessions, hotel staff brought in potential clients who wanted a preview of the ballroom's acoustics. They stood quietly at the back while May played, then peppered the events team with questions about booking the same pianist for their own functions. The hotel manager finally posted a staff member at the door to prevent interruptions. "You're becoming quite the attraction," he told May with a wink. "But we need to respect your rehearsal time." 3 days before the gala, Mr. Bradshaw himself came to hear her practice. He sat in the empty ballroom, eyes closed, as May played selections from her planned program. "Magnificent," he said when she finished. "Simply magnificent." "Thank you, sir." "No, May, thank you." He looked at her thoughtfully. "You know, my company has always prided itself on recognizing talent. I'm ashamed we missed yours for so long." May didn't know how to respond. She simply nodded. "Well, that's going to change," Mr. Bradshaw continued. "After your performance at the gala, I'd like to discuss your future at Bradshaw Financial. I think we can find a more suitable position for someone with your abilities." "My abilities as a pianist?" May asked, confused. "Your abilities, period." Mr. Bradshaw stood.
"Anyone who can master something as difficult as classical piano at your level has qualities we need more of. Discipline, creativity, precision. Whether you continue playing or not."
"Those qualities deserve recognition." As he left, May remained seated at the piano, her mind spinning with possibilities she hadn't allowed herself to consider in years. Change was coming. She could feel it with a certainty that both thrilled and terrified her. The night before the gala, May could barely sleep. She lay awake, mentally playing through each piece in her program, imagining her fingers on the keys. When she finally drifted off near dawn, she dreamed of her first piano teacher who had once told her, "Music is not just about the notes you play. It's about finally being heard." Morning came too quickly. May dressed carefully in her usual work clothes, knowing she would change into her performance gown at the hotel later. As she headed out the door, her phone buzzed with a text from Patrick. "Big day. Everyone's talking about the mystery pianist. They have no idea it's you. See you tonight. Break a leg. May smiled, tucking her phone away. Today, for better or worse, they would all see her differently. Today, she would finally be heard. The ballroom of the Westbrook Hotel buzzed with activity as staff rushed to complete final preparations for the Bradshaw Financial Charity Gala. Crystal glasses gleamed under the chandeliers. Fresh flowers adorned every table. A red carpet stretched from the main entrance to the grand staircase. And in a small preparation room upstairs, May sat before a mirror, barely recognizing herself. The company had arranged for professional hair and makeup artists to prepare her for the performance. Her usual simple bun had been transformed into an elegant updo with soft tendrils framing her face. The makeup was subtle but highlighted her eyes and cheekbones in ways she'd never attempted herself. "You look beautiful," said the makeup artist, stepping back to admire her work. "That dress is stunning on you." May smoothed the midnight blue gown she'd selected with the company credit card. The salesperson had assured her it was perfect for a pianist. Elegant but allowing freedom of movement, with three-quarter sleeves that showcased her wrists and hands. "Thank you," she replied, still staring at her reflection. Who was this woman looking back at her? Not the invisible office worker. Not quite the conservatory student from years ago either. Someone new. A blend of both worlds. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. The events coordinator peeked in, clipboard in hand. 20 minutes until doors open, she announced. "Mr. Bradshaw would like you to join the receiving line briefly to meet some key donors before you begin playing. Is that okay?" May nodded, standing carefully in her unfamiliar heels. Of course. As she followed the coordinator downstairs, May's stomach tightened with nerves. Playing for strangers was one thing. Playing for colleagues who had overlooked her for years was another challenge entirely. Tonight would change how they saw her, for better or worse. At the bottom of the grand staircase, Mr. Bradshaw waited with several other executives, all in formal attire. His face brightened when he saw May. "Here she is, our hidden talent," he said warmly, extending his hand. "May, you look absolutely wonderful." "Thank you." "Sir?" she replied, accepting his handshake. "I want to introduce you to some people," Mr. Bradshaw continued, guiding her toward a small group of distinguished-looking guests. "This is Mr. Chen, one of our most valued clients. He's a great supporter of the arts." Mr. Chen was a slender man in his 60s with intelligent eyes and a thoughtful expression. He shook May's hand with interest. "Mr. Bradshaw tells me you're quite the pianist," he said. "I'm looking forward to hearing you play." "Thank you. I hope you enjoy the program," May replied politely. "Where did you study?" he asked, his head tilted slightly in curiosity. "The National Conservatory, back in my home country," May answered. Mr. Chen's eyebrows rose. "Impressive credentials. How did you end up working in finance?" Before May could answer, Vivian swooped in, resplendent in a red gown and diamonds. "May has been with our administrative team for several years," she said smoothly. "We were all quite surprised to discover her musical background. Such a hidden talent in our midst." Vivian's tone was pleasant, but May caught the underlying message. "Remember your place. This is temporary." Mr. Chen seemed to notice the tension. He smiled at May with genuine interest. "Well, I look forward to hearing what the National Conservatory taught you. I'm something of a music enthusiast myself." More guests began arriving, and May was ushered toward the piano. The magnificent Steinway had been positioned at the perfect angle, its lid fully open to project sound throughout the ballroom. A small spotlight illuminated the bench and keys. May took a deep breath, remembering her teacher's advice from long ago. Before you play for an audience, take a moment to center yourself. The space between silence and sound is where you find your power. She closed her eyes briefly, then sat at the bench and adjusted her position. The room continued to fill with guests in formal wear, their conversations creating a gentle hum of background noise. No one paid much attention to the pianist yet. She was just part of the ambiance, expected but not remarkable. Exactly as planned, May began with quiet, elegant background music as guests mingled and found their tables. Her fingers moved across the keys with practiced ease, playing tasteful arrangements of classical pieces that created atmosphere without demanding attention. For the first half hour, she remained nearly invisible, present but unnoticed, just as she had been at the office for years. It was comfortable, familiar territory. Yet tonight, unlike all those days at her desk, May knew everything was about to change. At precisely 7 o'clock, Mr. Bradshaw approached the small stage. He tapped a knife against his glass and the room gradually quieted. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Bradshaw Financial's annual charity gala," he announced, his voice carrying across the ballroom. "Before we begin dinner, I'd like to introduce a special treat. Many of you have been enjoying the beautiful piano music that has accompanied your arrival this evening. What you may not know is that the talented pianist is none other than one of our own team members." A murmur of surprise rippled through the crowd. May felt dozens of eyes turning toward her. "May Lynn has been with Bradshaw Financial for 7 years, Mr. Bradshaw continued. "Many of you have spoken with her on the phone or exchanged emails, though you may not have met her in person until tonight. What none of us realized until very recently is that May is a classically trained concert pianist of extraordinary ability." The guests' interest visibly increased. People who had barely glanced at the piano now stared openly at May. "I've asked May to share her talent properly with us tonight," Mr. Bradshaw said, gesturing toward her with obvious pride. "Rather than just background music, she will perform several pieces that showcase her remarkable skill. Please join me in welcoming May Lynn." Applause filled the room as Mr. Bradshaw stepped aside. May stood briefly, acknowledging the audience with a small bow before sitting again at the piano. Her heart pounded in her chest, but her hands remained steady as she positioned them above the keys. She had chosen Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2 for this moment. Specifically, a solo piano arrangement of the first movement. It was bold, perhaps too bold for the conservative crowd Mr. Bradshaw had described, but something inside May had shifted during the days of practice. If this was her moment to be truly seen and heard, she would play what moved her, not just what was expected. The ballroom fell completely silent as she began. The famous opening chords, dark, resonant, and powerful, filled the space. May's fingers pressed into the keys with growing intensity as the introduction built from near whisper to commanding presence. Then, the main theme emerged, achingly beautiful and complex. Every eye in the room was now fixed on May. The transformation was visible on the faces of those closest to the piano, from polite interest to genuine astonishment as they realized that the woman they'd dismissed as just an office worker was playing one of the most challenging pieces in the classical repertoire with the skill and passion of a concert. Artist May saw Patrick's mouth literally drop open. Next to him, Vivian's carefully composed expression couldn't hide her surprise. And beyond them, Mr. Chen leaned forward in his chair, completely engrossed in the music. As May reached the heart of the first movement, something extraordinary happened. The crowd, composed mostly of busy executives and wealthy donors used to multitasking through events, remained absolutely still. No one touched their phones. No one whispered to their table mates. The clink of glasses and silverware ceased entirely. 200 people breathed together in shared wonder as May's music filled not just the room, but something empty inside them they hadn't realized was there. Time seemed to slow down. May felt herself disappearing into the music, not in the way she had disappeared at the office, becoming invisible, but in the way she had once disappeared during her most transcendent performances, becoming nothing but a channel for something greater than herself. When the final notes of the piece faded, the silence that followed lasted just 2 heartbeats. Then the room erupted in applause, not polite, obligatory clapping, but genuine, enthusiastic appreciation. Some guests even rose to their feet. May looked up, momentarily startled by the response. She had expected polite acknowledgement, perhaps some surprised comments, not this overwhelming reaction. Mr. Bradshaw approached the piano again, beaming with pride. "Didn't I tell you?" he said to the crowd. "Extraordinary talent, and to think she's been handling our administrative work all these years." The comment drew appreciative laughter from the guests. May smiled slightly, accepting the compliment while feeling a twinge of something else, a reminder that until a week ago, her administrative work had been all anyone saw in her. "Please, another piece before dinner," Mr. Bradshaw requested. Encouraged by the crowd's enthusiasm, May nodded and began a Chopin ballade, another challenging piece, but with moments of delicate beauty that contrasted with the power of the Rachmaninoff. The audience remained captivated, many watching her hands with newfound respect as they moved across the keyboard with precision and grace. During dinner, May played lighter selections, allowing conversation to flow while still providing an elevated musical experience. She noticed servers pausing near the piano, clients asking questions about the pianist, and several people taking discreet photos or videos with their phones. Between the main course and dessert, Mr. Bradshaw invited her to play one more feature piece. This time, May chose a piece that spoke directly from her heart, Debussy's Reverie, a composition that captured the dreamy quality of remembering something beautiful from long ago. As she played, May found herself thinking of her journey, from the eager conservatory student to the invisible office worker, to this moment of recognition. Each phase had shaped her, for better or worse. Each had been real, even when others couldn't see the whole picture. The evening continued with speeches about Bradshaw Financial's charitable work, followed by a successful fundraising auction. Throughout it all, May played, sometimes commanding attention, sometimes blending into the background, but never again invisible. As the event wound down and guests began to depart, many stopped by the piano to compliment her directly. Business cards were pressed into her hands. Questions were asked about private performances and teaching. May accepted each interaction with grace, though the attention felt foreign after so many years of being overlooked. Mr. Chen was among the last to approach her. He waited until most guests had left before sitting beside her on the piano bench. "May I?" he asked politely. May nodded, shifting to make room. To her surprise, Mr. Chen placed his hands on the keys and played a few bars of a complex jazz progression. His technique was impressive, not conservatory level but far beyond casual playing. "Music has been my lifelong passion," he explained, continuing to play softly. "Though business became my career, I founded Chen International Music Foundation 15 years ago to support talented musicians." May listened, beginning to understand why Mr. Bradshaw had been so eager to introduce them earlier. "We sponsor concerts, provide instruments to schools, and offer scholarships to promising artists," Mr. Chen continued. "We also recently began a program specifically for musicians who had to set aside their careers for practical reasons." He stopped playing and turned to face May directly. "Your performance tonight was exceptional. I'd like to give you my card. Not the business one you already have, but my personal contact information. When you're ready to discuss your musical future, please call me." May accepted the small card, her fingers trembling slightly. "Thank you, Mr. Chen, that's very kind." "Not kind," he corrected gently. "Strategic. Talent like yours should not be filing papers." As Mr. Chen left, May remained at the piano, his words echoing in her mind. Your musical future. After 7 years of convincing herself that chapter was closed, doors were suddenly opening again. The ballroom had emptied except for cleanup staff when Vivian approached, her expression unreadable. "Well," she said, adjusting her diamond bracelet, "you certainly made an impression tonight." "Thank you," May replied simply. "Mr. Bradshaw wants to see you in his office first thing Monday morning." Vivian's tone was carefully neutral. "I believe he has some ideas about your role at the company going forward." May nodded, unsure if this was good news or a gentle way of removing her from her current position. "For what it's worth," Vivian added, her voice softening slightly, "you played beautifully. I never would have guessed." She trailed off, perhaps realizing how the statement reflected on her own failure to see beyond stereotypes and job titles. "Thank you, Vivian," May said. "I'll see you on Monday." After everyone had gone, May played one last piece, just for herself. The same Chopin nocturne she had played at her audition a week ago. The notes floated through the empty ballroom, no longer an audition or a performance, but a private celebration. Whatever happened on Monday, whatever choices lay ahead, one thing was certain: she would never again allow herself to be defined solely as just an office worker. She was May Lin, administrator, pianist, and so much more. And from now on, everyone would know it. Monday morning arrived with a strange mix of familiarity and difference. May woke at her usual time and followed her normal routine: shower, breakfast, carefully chosen work clothes. But as she looked in the mirror, she noticed she stood a little straighter. Her chin lifted slightly higher. The woman who had played Rachmaninoff before 200 astonished guests hadn't disappeared with the removal of the blue gown and elegant makeup. When she arrived at Bradshaw Financial, the security guard greeted her with new enthusiasm. "There she is, our celebrity pianist," Ray beamed. "You were amazing on Friday night." My daughter watched that video of you playing and couldn't believe it. Video? May asked, surprised. Oh yeah, it's all over the place. Patrick posted it on the company's social media. Didn't you know? Here, look. Ray held out his phone, showing May a video of herself playing the Rachmaninoff piece. The company's official account had shared it with the caption, "Hidden Talents at Bradshaw Financial. Our own Maylene stuns guests at our annual charity gala." The post had thousands of views and hundreds of comments. May felt her cheeks grow warm as she handed the phone back to Ray. "I had no idea," she said quietly. "Well, get used to it." Ray chuckled. "You're famous now." The elevator ride to the 24th floor felt longer than usual. May's stomach tightened with each passing floor as she thought about her upcoming meeting with Mr. Bradshaw. What exactly did he have in mind for her role going forward? When the doors opened, she was greeted by an unusual sight. Instead of the typical Monday morning scene of people hurrying to their desks with coffee cups and weekend complaints, several colleagues stood waiting for her. They burst into applause as she stepped off the elevator. There she is, the piano genius. "May, you were incredible." May smiled awkwardly, unused to being the center of attention. "Thank you. That's very kind." Patrick pushed through the small crowd. "May, the video hit 50,000 views this morning. The PR team is thrilled. We've never had this kind of engagement before." "That's wonderful," May managed, still processing the information. "Mr. Bradshaw's waiting for you," Patrick added, lowering his voice. "He seems excited about something big." May nodded and made her way to her desk, setting down her bag before heading to the executive suite. Along the way, people who had barely acknowledged her existence for years now smiled, waved, or stopped her to offer congratulations. It was disorienting, like walking through a familiar building where all the furniture had been rearranged. Mr. Bradshaw's assistant immediately ushered her into his office, another first. Usually, May would wait patiently while more important visitors were seen first. The company founder sat behind his imposing desk, but his expression was warm as he gestured for May to take a seat across from him. "May, just the person I've been eager to see. How are you feeling after Friday's triumph?" "Very well, thank you," she replied. "It was a wonderful evening." "Wonderful doesn't begin to cover it," Mr. Bradshaw chuckled. "I've received dozens of messages from clients and partners who were blown away by your performance. Mr. Chen called me personally on Saturday to sing your praises." May smiled, remembering Mr. Chen's kindness and his intriguing offer. "But enough about Friday," Mr. Bradshaw continued, leaning forward. "I want to talk about your future at Bradshaw Financial." Here it was, the moment of truth. May sat up straighter, preparing herself for whatever came next. "I've been thinking about this all weekend," Mr. Bradshaw said, "and I've come to a conclusion that I believe will benefit both you and the company tremendously." He paused, seeming to enjoy the moment. "I'd like to create a new position for you, Director of Arts and Cultural Engagement. You would oversee our charitable foundation's arts initiatives and represent the company at cultural events. Your musical background would be a central part of your role, not just a hidden talent." May blinked, trying to process the unexpected proposal. "That sounds very different from my current responsibilities." "Exactly." Mr. Bradshaw nodded enthusiastically. "It's a complete shift. Higher salary, of course. Executive-level benefits. You'd report directly to me, at least initially." "I'm not sure I have the right experience for such a position," May said carefully. "Experience comes with doing." Mr. Bradshaw waved her concern away. "You have the talent and discipline. That much is obvious from your musical abilities. The rest you can learn. What matters is that you understand the arts in a way none of our other executives do." He slid a folder across the desk. "The details are all in here. Salary, responsibilities, development plan. Take it home, think it over. We can discuss any questions tomorrow." May accepted the folder, her mind spinning with possibilities. "Thank you for this opportunity, Mr. Bradshaw. It's very generous." "Not generous, strategic," he replied, unknowingly echoing Mr. Chen's words from Friday night. "Bradshaw Financial prides itself on recognizing talent and putting it to its highest use. We failed to do that with you for far too long." As May left the executive suite, the folder felt heavy in her hands, weighted with possibility, opportunity, and decisions to be made. Back at her desk, she found a beautiful arrangement of white lilies with a card that read, "Brava, your colleagues at Bradshaw Financial." Beside it sat a small stack of business cards and notes from clients who had attended the gala, several requesting private performances or appearances, and tucked inside her desk drawer was Mr. Chen's personal card. She took it out now, running her finger over the embossed lettering. His foundation offered a different path entirely, one that led back to music directly, not as a corporate side note. May's phone buzzed with a text from her mother back home. "We saw the video," Dad cried. "So proud of you. This is the May we always knew was there." The simple message brought tears to her eyes. Her parents had supported her decision to set aside music for practical concerns 7 years ago, never pressuring her even though they had sacrificed much for her musical education. As May tried to focus on her regular tasks, colleagues continued to stop by her desk. Some she barely knew suddenly wanted to chat about their own abandoned hobbies or dreams. Others asked about music lessons for their children. Vivian walked past twice without stopping, her expression unreadable. By lunchtime, May needed space to think. She took the elevator down and walked to a small park near the office building. The spring day was mild, cherry blossoms floating on the breeze as she found an empty bench. Opening Mr. Bradshaw's folder, she reviewed the details of the proposed position. The salary was indeed generous, nearly triple what she currently earned. The responsibilities were interesting and would allow her to use her knowledge of music and the arts, but something about it didn't quite fit. The role still felt like it was crafted to capture and use her talent rather than truly honor it. Next, she examined Mr. Chen's card again. He hadn't made a specific offer, but the foundation's purpose was clear: supporting musicians who had set aside their careers for practical reasons. What would that support look like? A chance to perform? Financial assistance to study again? The uncertainty was both frightening and exhilarating. As May sat contemplating her options, a familiar voice interrupted her thoughts. "Mind if I join you?" She looked up to see Ray, the security guard, holding a paper bag lunch. "Please." She gestured to the empty space on the bench. Ray sat down with a contented sigh. "Beautiful day. Almost as beautiful as that music you played Friday night?" May smiled. "You weren't even there." "Watched it about 10 times on my phone," Ray chuckled. "My daughter, too. She's the one who plays at that restaurant I told you about, remember?" "I remember." May nodded. "She's got a regular Thursday night gig there now. Small place, but good people. She asked me to invite you. Says she'd love to meet you. Maybe you could play a song or two." May considered the simple invitation. No pressure, no corporate agenda. Just music for the joy of it. "I'd like that," she said softly. Ray nodded, unwrapping his sandwich. "Seems to me you've got some big decisions to make." May looked at him in surprise. "How did you know?" "Been watching people come and go from that building for 15 years, Ray shrugged. "I can spot someone at a crossroads. Plus the whole place is buzzing about Bradshaw offering you some fancy new position." "He did," May confirmed. "And there's another opportunity too with a music foundation." Ray took a bite of his sandwich, chewing thoughtfully. "Tough choice. What feels right to you?" It was a simple question, but it cut through the confusion of the past few days. "What did feel right? I don't know yet," May admitted. "For 7 years I convinced myself that music was my past, not my future. Now suddenly there are all these possibilities." "You know what I think?" Ray said, crumpling his sandwich wrapper. "I think the real question isn't about which job to take. It's about who you want to be from now on. The woman who hides her light or the woman who let everyone see it Friday night." May considered his words, watching cherry blossoms spiral to the ground. "Maybe there's a third option. Maybe I can be someone new, neither hiding nor defined by other people's sudden interest." Ray smiled. "Now that sounds like a plan." When May returned to the office, she felt calmer. The path forward wasn't clear yet, but she had realized one important thing. She didn't have to decide everything today. That evening, after most people had left, Vivian stopped by May's desk. Her usual commanding presence seemed subdued. "Have you looked at Mr. Bradshaw's offer?" she asked without preamble. "Yes," May replied. "It's very generous," Vivian nodded, absently straightening a stack of papers on May's desk. "I helped develop the position description." "Oh," May said, surprised. "Thank you." "Don't thank me," Vivian said, a hint of her old sharpness returning. "It makes good business sense. The company looks progressive for promoting from within, gets positive PR from your story. and gains a valuable skill set in the executive team. She paused, then added more softly, "And it's the right thing to do. We should have seen your potential years ago." With that unexpected admission, Vivian walked away, leaving May to ponder yet another shift in her rapidly changing world. By Friday, May had made her decision. She requested meetings with both Mr. Bradshaw and Mr. Chen for the following Monday. The weekend stretched before her. Time to practice, to think, to simply be with the music that had remained inside her all these years. As she packed up her desk, Patrick stopped by. "Big plans for the weekend?"
Yes, actually, May smiled.
"I'm going to hear a pianist play at a small restaurant tonight, and then I'm visiting a piano store tomorrow. I think it's time I had one of my own again." Patrick nodded approvingly. "So you're taking the new position?" "I haven't decided yet," May replied truthfully. "But whatever I choose, music will be part of my life again. That much I know for certain." As May left the building that evening, she nodded to Ray at his security desk. He gave her a knowing smile and a thumbs up. Outside, the city hummed with Friday energy, people rushing to dinner reservations, weekend plans, homes and families. May joined the flow, no longer feeling invisible in the crowd. For 7 years, she had been just an office worker, at least in the eyes of others. For 7 years, she had allowed their perception to define her, to limit her, to make her forget who she truly was. But from the first note she had played in that conference room audition, everything had changed. Not because others finally saw her value, though that mattered. Not because doors suddenly opened, though they had. Everything had changed because May had finally recognized herself again. In the music, in the keys beneath her fingers, in the courage it took to step out of invisibility. Whatever she decided on Monday, whatever path she chose, one thing was certain: she would never again let others define who she was or what she could become. That quiet power, the ability to shape her own story, was the true gift of the past extraordinary week. As she walked toward the restaurant where she would hear another pianist play, May began to hum softly to herself. It was the opening phrase of a new composition taking shape in her mind, the first she had written in 7 years. She already knew what she would call it: becoming visible.